"Welcome home, Mark. Look at the new car I bought for us." Those were the words that should have made me feel like the luckiest man in Phoenix. But as my wife Sarah pointed to the luxury SUV in our driveway and my best friend Dave leaned against the hood, all I could see was a paper trail. My brain, wired for detail as a forensic accountant, immediately went to the $80,000 missing from my personal retirement fund. I've spent the last 15 years of my life finding things that people try to hide. As a forensic accountant in Phoenix, Arizona, my job is to look at a mountain of chaotic data and find the one red thread that pulls the whole lie apart. I'm used to corporate CEOs sweating in boardrooms and small business owners trying to bury their tracks in offshore accounts. I never thought the person I'd be auditing would be the woman sleeping next to me. My wife, Sarah, was everything I wasn't. I was the spreadsheet guy, cold, analytical, and cautious. She was a high-energy real estate agent, the life of every party, and someone who could walk into a room of strangers and walk out with 5 new best friends. We complemented each other. Or, at least, that's what I told myself for a decade. The trouble started when I took on a massive, 3-month contract in Chicago. It was a career-defining audit for a Fortune 500 company. The pay was astronomical, but the catch was that I had to be on site. I was flying back to Phoenix once every 2 weeks for a measly 48 hours before heading back to the grind. It was grueling, but I kept telling myself it was for our future. "Go, Mark," Sarah had said, kissing me at the airport. "This is the big one. I'll hold down the fort here. I might even have a few big listings coming up myself. We'll both be winning." While I was in Chicago, buried in ledgers and digital footprints, I noticed Sarah was busier than usual. She was showing houses until 10 p.m. She was attending networking retreats in Sedona. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? And then there was Dave. Dave had been my best friend since college. He was currently between jobs, a phrase he'd been using for about 3 years. Because I felt bad for him, I'd let him use my spare office and even gave him a key to the house so he could use our home gym. I thought I was being a good friend. I thought I was helping a brother out. The first crack in the foundation appeared on a Tuesday morning. I was in my hotel room in Chicago, sipping bitter coffee and checking my personal retirement account, something I do once a month out of habit. My heart skipped a beat. The balance was off. Way off. $80,000 was gone. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to refresh. It didn't change. I went into the transaction history. The money hadn't been stolen by a hacker. It had been transferred, in 4 separate $20,000 increments, into our joint checking account. From there, it had been withdrawn via cashier's checks. My hand started to shake. I didn't call Sarah. My professional training kicked in. Rule number 1 of an audit: never alert the suspect until you have the proof. I flew back to Phoenix 3 days early. I didn't tell her. I took an Uber from the airport and had him drop me off a block away from my own house. As I walked up the driveway, I saw it. A brand new, white luxury SUV. It had a giant red bow on the hood. "Welcome home, Mark. Look at the new car I bought for us." Sarah came running out of the house, looking radiant. Behind her, leaning against the hood of the car with a smug grin on his face, was Dave. "Surprise, buddy," Dave shouted, clapping me on the back. "Sarah's been killing it in real estate. She wanted to surprise you for all the hard work you're doing in Chicago." Sarah was beaming. "I got a massive commission on that North Scottsdale estate, Mark. I wanted us to have something reliable. Do you love it?" I looked at the car. Then I looked at Dave. Then I looked at my wife. My brain was screaming. I knew for a fact that the North Scottsdale estate she was talking about hadn't closed yet. I'd checked the public records on the plane ride home. The car hadn't been bought with a commission. It had been bought with my retirement fund. My gift was bought with my own stolen life savings. But the physical theft wasn't even the worst part. Before we conclude this project, kindly subscribe to this channel. It would go a long way by helping us reach a wider audience. Thank you. That night, while Sarah was celebrating with a bottle of wine, I went into my home office. I logged into my corporate travel account. I had a specialized transponder for toll roads that was linked to my company expenses. I had left in the glove box of my old car, which Sarah was now driving. I pulled up the GPS and toll logs. For the last 6 weeks, while I was in Chicago, my company transponder had been pinging every single day. Not at house listings. Not at the real estate office. It was pinging at a luxury resort 3 hours away in Tucson. It would arrive at 11 a.m. and leave at 6 p.m. every single day. And then I saw the photo. In Arizona, Some high-occupancy vehicle lanes have cameras that snap a picture of the driver to ensure there are two people in the car. I logged into the portal to pay a small fine I saw listed. The image was crystal clear. It wasn't me in the driver's seat. It was Dave. He was driving the car I paid for. And in the passenger seat was Sarah, her hand resting on his neck, laughing as they sped toward their business meeting at the resort. They were using my money to buy a car so they could drive to a resort I was paying for, while I was 1,500 miles away working myself into an early grave. I sat in the dark of my office, the blue light of the monitor reflecting off my wedding ring. They thought I was just a spreadsheet guy. They thought I was too boring, too busy, and too blind to notice the missing numbers. They thought they had choreographed the perfect crime. They forgot one thing. I don't just find the money. I find the person who took it. And I was about to make sure that commission Sarah was so proud it cost her everything she ever valued. I closed the laptop, walked into the living room, and joined them for a drink. I toasted to the new car. I toasted to friendship. I even thanked Dave for looking after my wife while I was away. I'm gonna let them keep driving that car for one more week. I want them to get comfortable. I want them to take one more trip to that resort. Because next Friday, I'm not just filing for divorce. I'm filing a criminal complaint for grand theft and fraud. The week following my discovery was the longest 7 days of my life. Every time Sarah kissed me or Dave asked me how the big audit in Chicago was going, I felt a surge of adrenaline that I had to bury deep inside. I'm an analyst. I'm trained to stay objective, even when my own life is the crime scene. I needed them to stay comfortable. I needed them to believe I was still the clueless husband who just worked, paid the bills, and didn't ask questions. On Monday, I met with a high-asset divorce attorney and my private investigator, a former detective named Miller. I laid out the evidence, the bank transfers, the shell company Sarah had tried to hide, and the toll camera photos of her and Dave. The divorce is the easy part, Mark, my attorney said, looking over the ledgers. But because she moved that money from your personal retirement fund into a joint account under false pretenses, claiming it was for a college fund, and then used it to buy a vehicle she's letting a third party drive, that's entering the realm of criminal fraud and grand theft. Miller, the PI, leaned forward. I've been tracking the SUV. They aren't just going to the resort. Dave has been using the car to run errands for a business he's trying to start with your money. They've already spent another $12,000 on consulting fees that went straight into Dave's personal account. I felt the heat rise in my neck, but I kept my voice steady. I want them caught in the act. I want the moment documented. Miller smiled. They have another retreat booked for Friday. I'll be there. You just need to make sure you're busy at the office. Friday morning arrived. I told Sarah I had an emergency meeting at the firm and might be late. She gave me a sympathetic pout, tucked a stray hair behind her ear, and told me to work hard so we could take a real vacation soon. I almost laughed. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, Miller pinged my phone. The hunt was on. I spent the afternoon in my office, not working, but watching a live feed. Miller had followed them to the Tucson resort. He sent me high-resolution photos of them checking in as Mr. and Mrs. Miller, using his name, but my credit card for the incidental hold. They were lounging by the pool, drinking expensive cocktails, and laughing. They looked like a couple in a commercial. They looked like they didn't have a care in the world. While they were poolside, I was at the bank. I had a court order to freeze the joint account. I also contacted the dealership where the SUV was purchased. Since the car was bought with funds stolen from my retirement and registered in both our names, I had the legal right to report it as part of an active fraud investigation. Before we conclude this project, kindly subscribe to this channel. It would go a long way by helping us reach a wider audience. Thank you. At 6 p.m., I drove to the resort. I didn't go alone. I met Miller and two local officers in the parking lot. We waited until Sarah and Dave walked out of the lobby, arm in arm, heading toward the white SUV with a red bow still sitting on the dashboard as a cruel souvenir. As Dave clicked the key fob to unlock the door, the police cruiser pulled up behind them, lights flashing. Sarah's face went from glowing to ghostly white in 3 seconds. Dave started stuttering, trying to claim he was just valeting the car for a friend. I stepped out from behind the cruiser, holding the forensic audit report in my hand. "The car isn't yours, Dave," I said, my voice calmer than I thought it would be. "And the money you used to pay for this room? That's gone too. I froze the accounts 2 hours ago." "Mark, it's not what it looks like," Sarah screamed, reaching for me. Dave was just helping me. He was helping me with the real estate business. With my retirement money. I asked. I have the wire transfers, Sarah. I have the photos of you two in the HOV lane. And I have the testimony from the dealership. The officers didn't wait for the drama to escalate. Because of the amount involved, $80,000, and the interstate nature of the fraud I had documented, they were detained on the spot. Dave was handcuffed against the hood of the car he thought he'd stolen from me. Sarah was sobbing, begging me not to do this. I didn't stay to watch them get processed. I took the keys to the SUV from the officer, got into the driver's seat, and drove it back to Phoenix. The fallout was swift. The divorce was finalized in record time because Sarah had no leverage. Under Arizona law, since I could prove wasteful dissipation of marital assets and criminal intent, she was awarded nothing. In fact, the judge ordered her to pay back every cent of the $80,000 from her share of the home equity. Dave didn't have a cent to his name. He ended up taking a plea deal for his involvement in the fraud to avoid prison time, but his reputation in our circle is dead. He's currently working 2 minimum wage jobs to pay off the legal fees and the civil judgment I leveled against him. As for me, I sold that white SUV the day after the divorce was final. I put the money back into my retirement fund. I still work as a forensic accountant, but I've learned one valuable lesson. People can lie, but the numbers are always honest. I'm currently sitting on my porch in Phoenix, enjoying the silence of a house that finally feels like mine again. I'm no longer the clueless husband. I'm the guy who closed the most important audit of his life. It's been exactly 6 months since the flashing lights in that Tucson parking lot changed everything. People ask me if I felt a sense of relief the moment they were handcuffed. The truth? I felt nothing. It was like finishing a particularly difficult audit at the firm. I had found the discrepancy, corrected the error, and closed the file. But a week later, reality started to set in for everyone else. The social fallout in Phoenix was immediate. In our circle of friends, Dave had always been the fun guy, and Sarah was the star realtor. When the news broke that they hadn't just had an affair, but had systematically drained my retirement fund to pay for it, the doors didn't just close, they slammed shut. Dave lost his consulting leads overnight. No one wants a guy handled for fraud looking at their books. He moved out of his apartment and, according to my private investigator, ended up sleeping on his cousin's couch in a neighborhood he used to make fun of. He tried to text me once, a long, rambling message about brotherhood and how Sarah had manipulated him. I didn't reply. I just forwarded the screenshot to my lawyer and Dave's probation officer. Sarah's downfall was even more public. The real estate firm she worked for had a moral turpitude clause in her contract. The moment her mugshot hit the local news, she was fired. Without my income to support her lifestyle, and with a court order garnishing her remaining assets to pay me back, she lost everything. She had to sell her designer bags and jewelry just to pay for a studio apartment. 3 weeks ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop when Sarah walked in. She didn't see me at first. She looked older, tired, and the radiance she used to carry was completely gone. When our eyes met, she didn't look angry. She looked desperate. She actually walked over to my table and sat down. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I made a mistake. A huge one. Dave, he's gone. He took what was left of the cash I had and disappeared. I have nothing. Can we just talk?" I looked at her, and for the first time in 10 years, I didn't see my wife. I saw a bad investment. "Sarah," I said, sliding a copy of the final judgment across the table. "You spent 10 years with a forensic accountant, and you still haven't learned. I don't trade in mistakes. I trade in facts. The fact is, you didn't love me. You loved the stability I provided. And the fact is, Dave didn't love you. He loved the car and the resorts I paid for. You weren't a couple. You were two people sharing a stolen bank account." She started to cry, the same way she did at the resort. But the tears didn't move me anymore. "I'm being evicted, Mark. I have nowhere to go. I heard your brother has a spare room," I replied, standing up. "Maybe he'll let you stay there for commission. But don't call me again. Every time you do," I added to the harassment log for the restraining order. I walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. I've spent my life making sure the numbers balance. And for the first time, my life is finally in the black. I've started dating again. Someone who has her own career, her own retirement fund, and most importantly, her own sense of integrity. My retirement account is back to where it should be, plus interest. Dave is working a night shift at a warehouse, and Sarah is a cautionary tale in the Phoenix real estate scene. The audit is officially over. The books are closed, and for the first time, the spreadsheet guy is living a life that is truly, finally balanced.